to That's My Story on Rogers TV Georgina. I'm Carolyn Grassi. Tonight, you get to join me when I speak with Lauralee Reily, a community volunteer who's going to tell us some great stories and history of volunteering in Georgina. And we'll learn an awful lot about her and why volunteering is so important, and also learn a lot more about the Optimist Club. So welcome, Lauralee. We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good to be here.
I'm really glad you agreed to join us. One thing people should know about volunteers is they usually hate talking about themselves and drawing attention to themselves because it's all about the cause. So I really thank you for, it took a little bit of convincing, but I really thank you for joining us. So one thing I want to start with, and I always start my conversations like this, is how did you're not a native of Georgina, so how did you end up in Georgina?
My partner at that time lived up here, and that was back in 76, 77, whatever. I moved up here to be with him and just started going with him to the Optimist. He was involved with the Rod and Gun at that point. So I've been involved ever since.
And tell us what the Optimist Club was like at that time.
It was a lot of fun. At that point, there was the Optimist and the Optimists Club. So the women were not allowed to join the men's club at that time. That didn't change until 94 or something. So no, maybe before that. But we worked together. They did most of the planning and everything, but we helped run the dances and registrations and all that kind of stuff. So, and there was a lot of members at that point. So it was a good time.
What would you call a lot?
I think there was like 50 to 60 members.
Wow.
In the men's club. So, and they basically started out originally to build an arena. They built the first arena in Keswick. And at that point, they were just the friend of the boy. And it wasn't until later on they became the friend of youth. So
their slogan was actually friend of the boy?
Yes. Back in 1919, actually, when Optimism actually started, it was actually friend of the delinquent boy. And then they found that there was, they didn't need to put the delinquent in there. And I'm not sure what year it changed over to friend of the boy.
Right.
And then it became friend of youth.
Well, I'm really glad it changed to friend of youth.
Yes.
Because it's certainly, it's more inclusive, right? So it includes everybody.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what made you, you volunteered, it sounds like when you joined, the reason for you volunteering initially was social.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So you were new to town. Was it a great way to meet people?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And a lot of the people you volunteer with are also your friends, right?
Oh yeah, you become friends with everybody in the club. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really nice lifetime friends for you. That's great. So initially it was, can you give us an idea? I know you sent us some terrific pictures, which is great. But you also worked full time, right? You had a job, and then you volunteered. So how did you manage all that? Volunteering, I know there were like weekly meetings, weren't there? It wasn't a commitment that was just once in a while. This was something you were really dedicated to.
Yes, I was, but I looked after a family here in town and raised their boys. They were both school teachers. So, I was home most evenings. And, if there was a thing going on during the day, like the blood donor clinics and stuff, right, I would take the kids and go with me. They would come with me. So they were just part of my family. You just drag them along.
Sure. Yeah. It's a great thing to teach kids, right? To give back and volunteer and see what's happening in the community, for sure.
That's right. Yes.
So you said initially one of the biggest projects in the beginning was they built the Keswick Arena. I did not know that.
Yeah, the first arena got torn down. I mean, they didn't have ice and everything like that in there. And then I'm not sure they spent a lot of money and raised a lot of money and started to build the old Keswick Arena,
The old
which
Keswick Arena. Yeah.
yeah, which was famous for hockey and bingos and dances and all kinds of things that we were all involved in then.
Right.
So
Yeah. For
and
sure.
we
It was
started
the hub of the community, right? Every event around town was at the Keswick Arena.
oh, for sure it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
we
they
also
really
were,
couldn't hold any of those events without volunteers, could they?
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. And there was a lot of volunteer hours put in there. Yes.
Bingos, I know bingos are always such a community builder, right? Bingos are a great
Yes.
place to bring people together. It's it's really fun, you know. You don't need a lot of
Yeah.
skill.
Oh yeah. But there was a lot of hours put into the setups and the taking downs afterwards too that,
Sure.
you know, but it was fun. Oh, of course. Yeah.
Always fun.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Um,
Yeah, we always the women I think helped run the snack bar most of the time. So
ah, okay.
yeah.
That's good. And then so were you part of the club then, or were the women on the side, or did you have your own club, or how did that work, and when did it become one club?
Um well the Optimisms was already going and we had, 20 probably members or so. Um we celebrated our 40th anniversary with the Optimists, and then I joined the Optimist Club in '94. So, um, and the Optimists folded at that point because there wasn't enough of us to keep it going, and we were allowed to join the men's club then. So there was no need for it at that point. So, um, yeah, but we worked with the men's club all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were part of it.
Did you run separate events, or were your events all together and you just sort of sorted out the duties, or did you have
We had
separate?
separate events like we did a craft sales and stuff that way, but the men always were there to help set up with the tables, and if we needed them for anything, the heavy lifting, they were always there, which was always good. And the same as we always helped them with their dances and any project that they had. So it was a shared togetherness, at that point. It was really great. So,
Sure.
yeah.
So the majority, we're going to talk a little bit. I know one of the things you sent us through is the Optimist Creed. So you say that at the beginning of every meeting, and it's certainly guidelines that guide a lot of the members. So can you tell us a bit about that and how that creates the focus on how you choose to participate in the community? What kind of things that drives you to do?
Well, you always just strive to be your best and do your best and help everybody. And it's just something that, the creed has been, it was written many years ago by Glenn D. Larson. And um, it's just been a part of the Optimists. And every convention, every conference, everything that you go to, it's always repeated. And when you go to an Optimist convention and you've got, say, 4,000 people there at the international level, and everybody is repeating it, it is just amazing. you know Unfortunately now with Zoom,
Yeah.
you can't do that because everybody's computer is a different, um
All these three
and
second delays, so everybody's saying it
yeah,
3 seconds behind everybody else. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
so unfortunately we don't do it. So
yeah. So I know you sent us some great pictures. One of the ones we just have a couple minutes to talk about is tell me about the Rod and Gun Club, because that was a very big thing,
it was, it taught the youth, especially the boys, the proper way of handling a gun.
right?
They learned how to do marksmanship. Um, they got awards for, getting to certain levels, and they got a crest to put on their shirts or jackets or whatever every year. it really was. And they taught the hunter safety course at that point. Um, it really, and my partner Jack was involved, and that's how I got to go every Monday night, go to the hall and meet these young boys. And man, some of them are, turned out to be really, really good people and stand up people and volunteering and giving back. So it was a great experience for everybody involved.
Mhm. Um, so was that, I know you sent us some really great pictures, so we put those up. I'm sure if some people are watching, they might recognize themselves or recognize their neighbors or see some of those classic Keswick last names for sure. You can see those on
Yes.
there. How did you get people to participate back then? There was no, social media. So how did you get the kids to attend and participate?
At that point, there was a lot of signs went up in the stores, and just talking to people and advertising it wherever you could. Like at that point, the Georgina Advocate was
Yeah.
a big place. Dorothy Kane was our greatest friend and was there, and she just promoted everything and took pictures, and she was a great lady. And yeah, it was a lot harder back then,
Mhm.
but and it was a smaller town though,
Oh,
so
for
it was a
sure.
lot easier. Once one person knew, they told the neighbor, the next neighbor, and we always had sellout crowds for most of the things that we did.
I'm
Yeah.
really glad you brought up Dorothy Kane. I noticed on all the pictures you sent that her name's on the bottom, and it just brought back so many memories because she was at every single event you ever went to, writing a story and taking a picture everywhere.
Yes, she was.
She was
Yes.
everywhere for sure. Loved her. She
Yes,
was a
she
great
was.
lady. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. It's really fun. You do miss some of the way, some of those community events were captured, certainly.
Oh
Now it's
yeah.
all done online, which is, fine. It's just different, right?
Yes, we've had to readjust, doing things like our Easter egg hunts and stuff and our porch visits and, that kind of stuff. And the same with the toy drive. We had to do all the bagging this year and,
So we're
hand
going
it
to
out
come
to.
back and talk about the toy drive. That's a really great thing. We're going to take a short break and just come back and talk about some of those big events and how they've changed over time and how the Optimists and you specifically have had to change the way you volunteer.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back to That's My Story on Rogers TV, Georgina. We're having a great conversation with Lauralee Reily today, a community volunteer. She's teaching us a lot about the joys of volunteering and the Optimist Club in Keswick. So Lauralee, one of the things we were just talking about was how volunteering, outreach changed, so how you get people engaged in the community, but also how volunteering certainly has changed. So um, can you tell me a bit about how, because I know you mentioned the Easter egg hunt and the toy drive. So first of all, those are both really big events currently in Georgina. What
Mhm.
changed like this year with the toy drive? So normally the toy drive is tell us what it is and then how we had to change it this year.
Previous years, we were always able to take all the toys up to the Keswick Christian Church,
Mhm.
and the parents would come in and be able to choose their gifts. They had a list of what they needed.
Right.
And that worked out great. It was for a whole week. This year, or last year, Christmas, because of
Yeah.
COVID, we couldn't do that. So we had a lot of volunteers, and you were one of them.
Yeah.
We have a room or a couple of rooms over at Remax, and then I was able to acquire a room at the back of Annie M's store.
Right.
And so we brought all the bags over there and we finished filling them. And then we had other members who would call the families and they would come and pick them up. They'd set up a time, they'd come to the back door and we gave them the gifts that way. So it was a lot of it done through Facebook, through the churches and schools. We still reached out to all of them, um, with emails and whatever, and they all had to apply and send in an application and everything. And yeah, there was a lot of work, but I think it worked out really well.
How many families were involved this year with the toy drive? Do you know?
Oh, I'm going to say between 250 and 300 families.
Oh, wow.
So you end
That's
up with, over 500 children at least,
for sure.
so yeah.
That's pretty
So,
amazing. And tell me about the Easter egg, the Easter hunt or the Easter bunny thing you did this
well,
year.
this year, it was all through advertised on Facebook as well, and they had to make appointments, and we had our Easter bunny and a driver go to all the homes and do porch visits with them. So the kids would be on the porch, and the Easter bunny was, on their driveway or on their front lawn or whatever. And yeah, we really, it turned out well. There was a lot of families that were very, very happy. And it's just the joy of seeing the smiles on the children's faces when they get to see the Easter bunny or something. I mean, it makes your heart feel good that you're making a child smile.
Yeah. Which is, you mentioned earlier, I mean, initially it started out helping boys and then helping youth, but the whole idea behind the organization you're involved with is, helping youth and getting them engaged in the community. So, I
Yes.
mean, you guys must have great connections if you can get the Easter bunny to come with you in the car and make home visits. That's pretty good.
Yes, we do.
Pretty good. Yeah, that's great. So I also want to just talk about you. You really light up when you talk about volunteering, and there's a great thing about that. So tell me why you continue to volunteer and do as much as you do, because you're semi-retired now, right? But you're constantly busy and you're always working on new initiatives and different things for the Optimists. And why do you keep doing it?
It and it's just something I have always done. Um, my parents were very much involved in our community and volunteering for everything, so it's just part of who I am. And without being able to help people, especially children, um, I was a PSW, and I worked with a lot of seniors, and in my eyes, they were just like big kids. So I always had a lot of fun with them as well.
Sure.
So um, it gets me out of the house. I mean, unfortunately, right now we can't do that, but and don't have that contact with them. But it's just always nice to just get out and help people.
So you mentioned earlier, and in some of the photos I know that we're going to put up, part of any success of service clubs seems to be great partnerships with local businesses, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
one of the photos I think you sent us are taking kids on a little cruise around Lake Simcoe. Can you tell us about that and some of the picnics and things you used to have?
Yeah, that was years ago. Now with insurance and stuff, we probably couldn't do it, and maybe that's why it didn't last too many years.
Right.
But having friends that own marinas like Dawson's Marina and stuff, and their friends who volunteered their boats and took the kids out onto the lake, the handicapped children, wheelchair accessible, and it was just so much fun, and seeing the smiles on those children's faces was just an amazing thing. There's not very many people around that probably even remember those days right anymore, but and that's why I'm lucky I've got the 50th anniversary book and a lot of the books from at one point every president had to make a scrapbook, and gee, I have most of them here at my house now.
Fantastic idea. So you've got all that history.
Yes, and unfortunately now with computers and stuff, you don't have that in books.
right.
So like when we did our 70th anniversary, I mean, I had boxes of books to take up and set out. And I remember Scott Davidson was going and looking through them and found a picture of himself on one of his skidoos, and it was like, really?
See,
And that just, yeah, it just made it well worthwhile that people could see those things, right? So,
that's really great. It's a part of people's childhood. It's certainly when I've only lived here 30 years full time, but I was a cottager here forever, and you remember the events and you remember meeting all the different people and getting involved. And some of your pictures I think are great. I noticed in
yeah.
the oratorical contest, which my daughter was involved with, but I saw Carolyn Fahey, and I was like. Carolyn Fahey won, which is Carolyn Crate today. And I thought, well, isn't that cool? It was really nice to find people in there, right? It was good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've still got great connections with local businesses. You must be a tough group to say no to, because certainly I know with the toy drive, you've got every local grocery store, every major employer in town, um, gives you space, lets you parks in front of their store, stores things for you, donates things for you. It really says a lot about the group and the people that are engaged. So, that's a pretty great thing too.
Oh, for sure. Yes. We couldn't do it without the businesses in town,
Yeah.
and when we were doing our unplugged in the park and stuff like that, like there was so many businesses was donating things. And, at Keswick Flowers, Bob Goodlad, you can't say anything bad about that man. He was always donating to this and to that. And he does it for everybody. It's not just for the optimists, but,
Yeah.
and I think because we are a friend of youth and helping the kids, most people have got families, or they know of families with children that have been involved. And yeah, so
Yeah.
we've been very blessed over the years.
Well, it really makes it different, and as Georgina grows, I think it's really important that we highlight, the volunteer organizations in town, because new people come here, they may not know about you. They're coming from all over the world and all over Ontario, and get here, and everybody's looking for a sense of community. And one of the best things you can do, at least in my opinion, and clearly in yours, is volunteer and get engaged.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
You meet people, you learn things, you make friends, you learn about local businesses, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And, we need people from all walks of life, and we don't care. We just want your ideas. We want your fun time. Yeah.
And nowadays, I think it's really catered. People can volunteer as little or as more as they want, right? So if people have time just to help with one thing, or if they want to jump right in and do lots of things, that's okay too.
Yes, for sure. Like we have like one meeting a month,
Yeah.
and everything is on Zoom now. Um, so it's there's not a lot of time that you have to put into it. It's all up to the individual and what you want to do. So,
Yeah.
how
Great.
many hours you want to put in.
So what's next for Lauralee? What are you working on now?
Right now we're just doing an online auction that we have.
Oh, great.
And we're still trying to do fundraising through the McGregor Meets.
Mhm.
Um, we're, planning on, hoping to get together for our conference or convention in August, maybe.
Right. Yeah. And are
Excuse
you
me.
thinking about Christmas already too?
Oh yes.
Oh,
Oh
we're
yes.
always thinking about Christmas.
Oh yeah. We've got a couple of members who really like to buy things, so we're sort of ahead of the game
Oh,
right
that's
now
great.
with the,
Yeah.
yeah. So no, we're doing well that way, and that will be the next, and we also have a golf tournament coming up too, the end of June.
Oh, terrific.
So
Great.
yeah, that's something we've never done up here, and uh, we had to move it from the 30th of, well, now we maybe could have changed or had it because golf courses are open, but we've changed it to the 27th of June, I think it is. So
Great. And
yeah.
I should just mention, we'll see if we can put up, the Optimist Club Facebook page or something, so that if people want to learn a little bit more, they can check that out and contact people if they want to. I think it's just really, really great about how, I know that you're one volunteer and there's lots of volunteers. Certainly, it's great to see why people volunteer, but how they do it for such a long time and get engaged in different events and how it changes, certainly. I mean, the last year and
Yeah,
a half changed everything, but
sure
it's
did.
nice to see that it didn't change how people get engaged and volunteer and still contribute back to the community. So lots of people can still benefit,
Yes,
whether it's just doing it a different way, right?
that's right.
Yeah,
Everybody's had to change. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. We've all had to learn how to do things on iPads and tablets and phones and screens. And yeah,
Yes, unfortunately we have, but
yeah,
thank goodness that we can still keep in contact. I mean,
yeah.
that's the optimist, I guess, in me that, you still want to be engaged, so you help out where you can.
Absolutely right. So, well, you know what? It's really important, I think, for people to learn about that kind of stuff. And also, we just want to thank you because you do a great job, and everybody knows that. The optimists are great. We think you're great, and we really thank you for sharing your volunteer journey with us and some great pictures and some great memories, but also some of the new and upcoming things that are going on, and that it's still alive and going strong. So thank you so much for taking the time with us today and sharing all of your experiences. We really appreciate it, Marley.
Thank you very much, Carolyn.
Okay. That's it, Georgina, for this session of That's My Story on Rogers TV, and we hope to see you next time.